Who are we? Well, we are Pure Gym. How do we become that community gym? How do we become that neighborhood gym? We got to be thinking about what is of value for these members. It was forbidden for girls to exercise. It came from the fact that there was no infrastructure to protect these girls. 2018 became legal.
Tell us about what it was like to return to the Gulf and to Saudi in particular.
The pace here is so much faster. The energy, the motivation to make the biggest towers and change the desert to gardens, and that's the entrepreneurship. They'll find ways to make it happen. Nothing stops us. My style is, if I give you a offer letter, it's also your warning letter. You don't like it, leave.
So when they leave that room, what are some of the behaviors or telltale signs that you see and you're like, yes, that person gets it and they're on board?
The ones that don't resign.
Nasser, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, David.
It's great to see you. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us a bit about your early life in Canada and what brought you into the fitness industry.
Not getting into too many details there, but in grade 4, for some reason they picked me out to represent the school I was at for soccer. Being Canadian, we call it soccer. Of course, you guys call it football, and they call it football here. And there, we got the athletics started to appear. Got into basketball, got into all the sports. By grade 6, I was on the track and field team, on the baseball team, and that continued in high school. 5 years in a row at that time, athlete of the year, on the billboards, in the newspapers. But it was a small town, and just my whole life has been around sports. I felt good. It was something that I was good at naturally, and that kind of it took off from there till I got injured in 1994 at a track and field event. It was OFSA. It was the entire province of Ontario, Canada. And then, I was doing the triple jump and the 100-meter sprint, got injured. Being at a small town, they couldn't really fix me. Got into recovery, but I wasn't as good as I was when I was younger. Continued to play sports, continued to play soccer, basketball, all the sports. And then when it was time for university, I wanted to continue in that path, and chose to go to McMaster University for kinesiology. And kinesiology, for those who don't know, is the study of the human body during movement and exercise. And it was out of passion for sports and fitness, but it's also about, what happened to me. It could have been fixed. Maybe I can help generations in the future how to deal with situations like that. It's just my passion from when I was a young lad, and continued throughout my life. And I think it was driven by when I was even younger with my father. And we always had the football around, and we're passing it around, and it just kind of, it lived with me, and I took it naturally. It's been a fun ride so far.
What was your professional kind of entry into the fitness industry? What did that look like?
I was always undecided whether I want to do the medical sport injury side or the business side of sport and fitness. So actually, during university, ran the intramurals for the university, which is 17,000 students at McMaster at that time. The sports injury clinic, working on the football players, on the varsity players that were there. My first job was actually at a motor vehicle accident rehab in downtown Toronto. Just didn't find my fit. So Dad decided, hey, why don't you try going out to Dubai? And at that time, I was introduced to equipment supplier or distributor for Life Fitness, which is a commercial fitness equipment, American product. And that was, April 2002. Felt myself like this is a way that I can pass on my knowledge about awareness about the health and fitness. It was also my way of saying I can actually impact people's lives and live a healthy lives through having fitness equipment supplied to health clubs, universities, hospitals, corporations. It was a good product, and yeah, did that for 23 years with two different brands in the UAE, but then across the Gulf region. In the equipment supply side of the business, I just had yeah, I guess a passion and a drive for it, which lasted 23 years. But yeah, I mean, I did that in the Gulf region, in the Middle East. I was exposed to globally, Asia, Europe, and then I actually jumped ship. At that time was unknown brand or about to be brand to what became now the number one brand, Matrix. And then I did that in the Middle East. I opened their subsidiary office and then moved with them to Canada, where I spent the previous or the last 6 years before deciding that I needed a change. After 23 years of equipment supply.
Wow. And what led you to take on the role you've got today with PureGym? What was the opportunity that you saw there?
It was actually my birthday. Got a phone call. Didn't really think about leaving Canada ever again. I did a farewell party in 2019. That's it. I'm not coming back to the Middle East. And then it was in that late 2024. I found myself getting a little bit bored. I felt that the business of health, equipment supply, which just became too routine. It was kind of starting to get boring. I found myself that I was working out of my office or home office, especially after COVID. It was difficult to get back on the road like I was before. So I wanted to change. Tried actually to get into different industries, but my position, CEO and president and managing director, going into the same position in a different industry, you require that network, you require that particular specific knowledge. I tried, but then this phone call came, and it was in running a health club chain. It's kind of interesting. I'm saying, well, maybe it's in the same kind of health and wellness and fitness, but it's on the other side of the table. So I explored the opportunity. It actually moved quite quickly. And then the question became, do we move back to the Middle East? Do we move back to Riyadh? And this is, I involved my wife, of course, and the kids. This is a big move. I do have, the two older children and little Omar. So yeah, it was a family decision. We knew that there's going to be a transition. We knew there's going to be challenges. It was change again, moving from Dubai to Saudi to back to Dubai, and then to Montreal first, and then to Toronto. Are we ready to make the move? And I felt comfortable that I'm still in the same industry. I do have my network that I have built over the previous 18 years here in the Middle East, and started to investigate more about what Riyadh is and where it's going and what to do. But I just felt like I was getting a little bit bored, but I still have the passion for wellness and fitness and health. And it was everything that I've done in my entire life. So it came at a perfect time. And now I can do it, from the other side of the table. And I'm telling you, it's been interesting the last 4.5 months. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to learn more. Take us into, if you don't mind, that conversation with the family, because this is something lots of executives will face, right? Having to relocate, talking to the wife. You mentioned you have young children. Are you talking to the children about this? Are you asking them questions? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, they're adults now. I have a
Oh, okay.
21-year-old 21-year-old daughter,
Okay.
18-year-old
So
son.
they have some quite strong opinions, yeah.
Yes, yes. So Tia just finished her bachelor's degree in health sciences. Marwan is just finished his first year in business management.
Okay.
And little Omar is 10 years old,
Okay.
in grade 5. But he's very opinionated as well. And this will be the first time that he's actually going to be away from his siblings, his brother and sister. So that was, I think for us, the change in talking to my wife, was what's the impact on not only myself, but my wife, but Omar, the young one. From my wife's side, she's also in the fitness industry. She's a personal trainer, a boxing coach, a Guinness World Record holder.
Wow.
She's really into the fitness and wellness and health. So in this industry, she was fine. The move to Riyadh was not an easy conversation. We really wanted to hold on to everything we've built in Canada. Being away for so many years, we had our custom-made home. We fit out the pool in the backyard and so on. We really didn't want to let that go, and it was about, can we hold on to what we have and the move without changing anything. So that was the first step. That was the first question, was everything we've lived for, everything we've worked for, can we hold on to it? And then it was about, okay, so who's going to take the responsibility now? With my wife and little Omar joined me. They're still in Canada, so Omar's till they finish the school year, so they'll be coming in the middle of June. So right now it feels okay because mom and little Omar are there. But what happens when they move? So what we've done is, I built a home that was smart home. So I have cameras everywhere, security everywhere, which gives that little bit of comfort. You have Zoom, what's it called? FaceTime. You have the different ways of communication. The kids are older; they can depend on themselves. They are worried about the responsibility, the older ones. So that's something that we had to manage. I do have a support structure. I do have 3 brothers that live around me. My parents, my mom and dad, so that they're also around. So that's that support structure. If needed, in case of emergencies, they're there. But it was not an easy decision, and we knew that we had to sacrifice being away from each other. So I've been away now, away from them for 4 months, and it hasn't been easy. So we're Zooming, also with a time difference. But yeah, we're getting through it. So in 2 weeks, I travel back. We spend the holidays, the Eid holidays there, and then we'll be able to come back together. So we're getting through it. It's been a challenge, but hopefully it's going to be worth it. The decision was not easy, but I got to a point where I just needed a change, and they respected that. That my wife and kids, they understand that as the breadwinner, the main breadwinner in the family, they saw that the stress was coming hard on me, and I needed the change, and they've seen the difference since I've moved here. The smile is back, the energy is back. I'm taking care of myself again. So they're sacrificed as well, dad being away, but they know that this is good for dad.
Sometimes some time apart can really make you kind of appreciate each other as well, right? Like it gives you the opportunity to miss each other, and then having your family there is going to feel, whereas before it might just have been a given, right? Whereas now when they come, it's going to, every day is going to be, you're going to appreciate it.
Absolutely. They have a plan for them when I'm coming back. They have things to do. Nice. Dad's coming home and the preparations are there. But I do agree. It's sometimes you take family for granted, and those times when the kids wake up and, hey, Dad, can we take a couple of minutes? And no, I'm busy. But now it's I'm going to dedicate that time that I'm away, stop the work, focus on the family. And yeah, we have to now think of really spending quality time together whenever we get that chance.
And you mentioned your wife was a world record holder. What record is that?
A Guinness World Record. Yeah, a Guinness World Record holder for the most alternating knee kicks by a female in 1 minute. So she's a kickboxer. Yeah. She's a marathon runner, a boxer. She's an official elite boxer as well. But yeah, the most alternating knee kicks by a female in 1 minute. 132. Not too many guys or girls can do that. But she is the Guinness World Record holder. Yeah, Dua Kaid. Yeah.
She's not someone you want to argue with, sounds like.
No. Especially if she's preparing for her classes. She gives boxing classes for children, for adults. So she's rehearsing that at night. Sometimes she has a couple of dreams of rehearsing. I've had a couple of punches in the middle of the night. But no, we're on good terms. We're good. I don't make her upset.
Good. And tell us about what it was like to return to the Gulf and to Saudi in particular. So it's been an area that's received a lot of attention, even over the last 6 months. What did you find when you came back to the Gulf?
Yeah, I mean, part of the research of coming back and taking a decision was how has it changed? So the last time I was in Saudi Arabia was in 2015. So that's 10 years ago. But I never lived in Riyadh. I lived in Jeddah during that time. I was just coming in and out. Um, so I knew that women can drive now. I knew that there is women fitness clubs. I knew that it's more open than what it was. But the technology that they've invested into, and I compare it to when I got the visa back in 2009 compared to 2015.
Mm,
Everything is online,
mm,
everything's automated, everything's seamless. It was such an easier process of getting a residence visa here. Um, as a Canadian as well, you get visa on arrival for a visit visa. So there was the technology side, and then it was the arrival at the airport and these new airports and how quick. I remember waiting in lines for a couple of hours
mm.
to get through the passport check. It was seamless. And then when I got out, and whether it was the Ubers and the Kareems and the taxi drivers, all these different companies, and it was then the towers and the buildings. Then there's the public transportation. And then of course I saw women driving
Mhm.
in cars, which wasn't there before. Big transformations in the culture, the number of coffee shops that I saw, not like what it was before. The entertainment that's there, the malls, the brands, really, really at a global level. Being from GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and traveling the world, they've stepped up big time to what it is now, and they have the opportunity to do so much more.
Yeah, it's interesting coming, growing up in the West, whether it's in North America or Western Europe, and things are so slow. Like there's,
Yes.
you know, building a train line can take 15 years. So sometimes it's really refreshing to go to these places, and nowhere's perfect. Everywhere has its different pros and its cons, but it's, the energy and the inspiration and seeing the development must have been
you know, I,
really great.
I want to, if I can make a point on this, one of the biggest
Mm,
difference from a bit on the business side,
mm,
and it's this point right here. It's
mm,
the pace of action, the pace of the hustle. Just the amount of energy. Um, Sorry to say to my Canadian friends, but I lived there, and it was the pace for there was good. Right, if you live in that pace, you don't feel a difference. But since I've been in both sides and in both cultures and different parts of the world, the pace here is so much faster.
mm.
The energy, the drive to do more, the motivation to make the biggest towers and change the desert to gardens and the things that are doing this vision of 2030 that they have here in Saudi Arabia, the importance of health and fitness and how that impacts people and um, you know, it's unbelievable. You have a government with a vision. You have people that want to do more, that are ambitious. Um, they made rules where if you want to work with the government as a company, you need to open an office here.
Yeah.
But well, why should I open an office here? Well, here's the opportunity. This is what's coming.
Yeah.
To convince them to come. So now you have all these companies that are coming here to open up offices. Of course, then you have inflation and you have higher cost of living and so on, more traffic. But it's that drive of the people, the government, and just wanting to do things that are at a higher level. Maybe it's because they were so far behind, they need to catch up quicker. But what I've seen is they've surpassed a lot of Western European world technology infrastructures. The things that they're doing. When I left 2001 from Toronto to Dubai, and then when I returned back in 2019, and I've said this before on different interviews, it felt like nothing has changed from 2001 to 2019.
Mm,
We were still talking about the same things, technology and fitness equipment. If you wanted to have a touch screen, it was like Wi-Fi is too expensive. It's true. One of the most expensive Wi-Fi in the world is in Canada, but we're still working on cardio equipment that didn't have touch screens.
mm,
Where in the UAE, in the Middle East, if it didn't have a touch screen
mm.
and the technology behind it, you're cheap. you don't, well, who are you? So it changed so much. The pace is so much faster, supported by government, the people, the ambition, and yeah, it's this is the place to be right now, David. The pace is fast. Everybody's talking about it in the last 6 months, but this has been years in the building, and now we're starting to take shape. And I think based on the visitors last week that came to Saudi, there's going to be a lot more investments. There's going to be a lot more plans, and I see it right in front of my own eyes, and I'm like, this is the place to be.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk more about leadership later and your views on leadership, but it seems to me, particularly in places like Saudi, and there feels like there's a shared vision, and when people buy into that, you start to see the stuff you're talking about there in society, and maybe that's something that perhaps we're struggling a bit more with in the West.
Yeah, of course, the driving force is the direction, by the leaders of the countries. Their focus was, we're so dependent on oil. How can we create different industries and so become less dependent on oil? And this is where that drive and that vision came from, to open up and have entertainment and have infrastructures and events and companies and different ways of bringing in funds to the government. But yeah, it starts with leadership, with a different. I think every leader has a different different objectives, different goals. The monarchy system is different than a democratic system as well, and the changes. Every once in a while when you're changing leaders, they could have a different strategy. But yeah, all around me, in the Gulf region right now, we see great leaders who are driving forward, wanting to make change for the better for their citizens. Right? It's, of course, we're here as a foreigners and expats. It's a privilege for us to be here, but it's that how can we do better for our citizens? But I think every leader should be doing that. How can we take care of our citizens so that they can have a good future?
And let's talk a bit more specifically about the fitness industry. You mentioned a few things there, such as sort of modernity and innovation in the equipment, but what have you seen really change in the fitness industry in the Gulf over the last, say, 10 years or so?
In the last 10 years is also advanced, but if we go back to 2001, in the UAE at that time, in Dubai, there was just one commercial fitness club. Wow. And I was able to witness the expansion into those numbers and the size of the business. In the equipment supply side, we supply 13 different vertical markets, what we call vertical markets. So in addition to the health clubs, we also supplied hotels, universities, residential compounds, corporations, the government, the army, and so on. And most equipment manufacturers build for health clubs. So when health clubs was not a thing, we were focused on the verticals. Now, 10 years in the making, I'd say probably in the last 7 years, in particular in Saudi Arabia, the expansion of the women fitness clubs. So before 2018, there was one, but they had the certain criteria for why they opened. I worked on supplying the equipment for them. But in 2018, when it became legal, when that push came in to allow for women to exercise and to have commercial fitness clubs for women only, this skyrocketed. That allowed certain companies, the first one being Lijam, to go on the stock market. So here is a 200 plus club chain on the stock market in Saudi Arabia. Beside the Aramcos, the oil companies, and the Sabics and the petrochemicals and everything else. And this opened eyes for investors about health clubs, about this is a profitable business. This is something that we want to invest in. And there becomes, again, a rush of investors into this business. Now, some of them have the funds, but don't have the technical skills or the knowledge to do it. Some have, in any business, you open up, you fail. But the drive for health clubs, and there's still opportunities. Today we have over 800 clubs in Saudi Arabia, and spreading from the west to the east, which was like 300 10 years ago. So, and there's still room for more untapped second tier cities, smaller communities, the buildings. I mean, the cities that they're actually building like cities. Those need community centers. Those need health clubs. And then you start tapping into more where the aging population needs specific centers for them. You still have an issue here of diabetic children under the age of 12. It's a high percentage. I can't, don't quote me, but it's about like 32% of the children have diabetes. And so we have to start thinking about the healthy lifestyle mindset, and how it's about longevity. It's about having a future. But they've also realized that the food that they eat, the weather that they live in, when today we came in, it was 46 degrees Celsius. It's specific to the region. And this is where you start creating and establishing things that a friend of mine calls Arabized, where you understand the culture, you understand how they eat, you understand their lifestyle, how they sleep, what they do, how do they work, how do they function, and then create solutions that help them. And what better place than doing it at a health club, where it's a social club, because people come to interact, people come to socialize, people come to exercise, people come for rehab, people come for training and preparing for athletic events. So allowing athletes, Saudi athletes, and really investing in Olympic level athletes, elite level athletes, allowing for the Saudi Soccer Federation to become privatized, bringing in names like Cristiano Ronaldo and Benzema, those big names that are coming in, also allows for this awareness about how important it is to be fit and healthy. And then you have the cost of the medical cost of when people are getting sick, understanding we can actually prevent most of those if we had a healthy lifestyle. And that's where we come in. We are part of that healthy lifestyle. And throughout my career, throughout my life, it's always been about, awareness, creating awareness about the importance of health and fitness. I think COVID helped push that across, to creating that awareness that we're actually a solution in the health and fitness, not a problem. Even though, yes, people come together, there's ways that you can exercise without having to pass on and COVID and so on. So here in the region, 10 years ago, no women fitness clubs. Very, very few could actually invest in health clubs. The regulations from the Ministry of Sport weren't suitable for scalable companies. The taxes, the way that they set up taxes for investors to come in was a little bit challenging. They have removed those roadblocks. Those roadblocks continue to be knocked down. They're continuing to invest in infrastructures, allowing companies to expand, giving them the facilities, whether it's investments in property, banking investments, the funding mechanisms, which we can talk about, and how to make a successful health club. But the biggest impact, I'd say, the government allowing women to have their health clubs. This was something that they needed to introduce into the education curriculum. Right? It was almost a forbidden for girls to exercise. Now, it came from the fear that they might get injured. It came from the fact that there was no infrastructure to protect these girls, from injuries, from facing different challenges that they would. But once you have teachers, and once you have an infrastructure, once you have a vision and a dream to put all this together. So it started one step at a time, introducing it into the education curriculum. How can I balance between working? Well, women weren't allowed to work in Saudi Arabia before, right? So it was very limited. So we need to get females in the industry working. Well, to work and to balance life and home and work, you need to be fit, you need to exercise. So it all came together, and I came at the right time. This is it. It's all coming together. This is it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to watch just how the vision of the leaders and the planning that gets involved. And here's one thing: they're also listening to the private sector. They're also listening to the investors. They're listening, and they're trying to, at events. And I've been invited to so many in the last 4 months, and they really want to listen. They really want to improve. They have this ambitious drive to become the best in the world. They bring the smartest, most talented, skilled people. They ask them the questions. They learn from them. They're not saying they know it. They're saying we want to learn. We want to become better, and they're hungry for information. Yeah, it gives me goosebumps for where this could be going.
Yeah. It's great to see the role that entrepreneurship plays in all this as well. So you have the government kind of explaining these are the opportunities, this is the vision, but they're not then the ones who are then trying to implement it. It's then handing that over to people like yourself, the entrepreneurs, who can then go ahead and execute on those opportunities.
Absolutely. You need that. You need the direction, but then you need to execute. And they have the mindset, to be able to pull this through. If they can't do it themselves, they'll find ways. But if they can't, if they don't have the way, they will come up with a way. So when we're talking about females, for example, in the female clubs, you need female employees. So if it wasn't part of the curriculum, and how do you get certified personal trainers? How do you the trainer becomes the trainee, and like that is difficult to deal with. But they're able to advance and make little steps. But that pace that we were talking about before just advances a lot faster because the vision is there. We want to get to here in 2030 and 2050. How do we make it happen? And they'll find ways to make it happen. So it's that drive of nothing stops us. We need to get to this goal. Let's do whatever it takes. And that's the entrepreneurship part of why it's driven the pace to what it is today.
Completely. You said your friend used the term to Arabize a business model. And I think obviously this will be interesting for people who are interested in the Gulf or the Middle East specifically, but also just to entrepreneurs who are growing businesses around the world. If you take what you do and then put it into a new culture, probably not going to work. So just give us some specifics in terms of how you would Arabize a health club format. What did that look like?
On the health club format, the biggest thing, I don't want to talk specifically about my health club or what I'm running, but women only facilities don't exist everywhere in the world. So that's one thing that we had to figure out. How do we have to have female only areas. We have to have something that is tailored and catered for them. And you can't do a health club and just say, okay, here, I'm going to buy this equipment and it's just copy paste. No, we need the understanding that fitness equipment and what the products that you're offering for females is different than male. So it's not only about who are the demographics and who am I attracting, but we have to also think females need different products than the males do. So number one, you have this female only, male only. There isn't any mixed. There's only one, and it's in a special area in the diplomatic quarters that allows it to be unisex, and hospitals. Sorry, so in a hospital before you could have a female gym, but again, it had to be separated from the male. So that's number one when you're talking about Arabizing health clubs. So that means you have two rents to pay. You have head office. They have the operational cost of more employees that you had to hire instead of renting it or having a 3,000 square meter one gym, one rent. the same staff, now you have to double it up. So you might split 1,500, fine, but the 1,500 square meters here, 1,500 square meters here, you split the rent, but you have more staff. Instead of running it with 10 in one, now you have 10 in each of them, 20 employees. That gets us into how employment packages work here. You can't have freelance personal trainers, for example, unless they are Saudi nationals. So if you're a foreigner, the only way you can be in the country working is if you have a sponsor, a company that sponsors you. Therefore, you need to have an employment contract. So if you're on an employment contract, you can't be a freelancer, right? So if you're working for a company, you can't work for other companies. So the focus becomes then, okay, we need Saudi national personal trainers who we can pay as we go. Well, how many of those are there? And the biggest challenge is your human capital. You can't find them. The pace is so fast. Clubs are being opened daily. There's just not enough staff. And when you have the government is pushing Saudiization, which means more nationals in the workforce, and you have different percentages. So for us in the health club industry, 40% of the employees have to be Saudi nationals. Now, within the company, there are certain departments that have a higher percentage than others. So customer service is a higher percentage. Finance is now coming where it's a higher percentage. Real estate, your public relations. But overall, 40% of your staff have to be Saudi nationals. Now, this is unique for Saudi Arabia, unlike the UAE. The UAE, 80% of the population are foreigners, 20% are citizens. Here it's the opposite. 80% are actual citizens, 20% are foreigners. So they need to focus on their employment rates. They need to bring people into the workforce. Now, the demand is so much higher than the supply. So finding the right candidates. So here you have an opportunity, which we just actually signed one 2 days ago, for academies that are focused on educating anybody that's interested in fitness and health and well-being, to actually now educate them and get them with a certified diploma, certified by the Ministry of Sport. These are certified personal trainers that are Saudi nationals, 100% guarantee, nowhere else in the world, 100% guarantee they'll find a job as soon as they graduate as a personal trainer. They're actually, the way it works is we're, as companies, securing the employment before they even start their 12-month program. They're coming out of university, coming out of the 12-month program, confirmed an employment opportunity. So when you come to the operational side, you have to think of the prayer area inside the health club. So every health club needs to have a prayer area, and the prayer area has to be done in a certain way. You have to think of which way is Mecca, because that's the way that you face when you pray. You have to think of preparing for the prayer called wudu. So you have to incorporate that into your design. You don't have that other places. Arabize means, having the Arabic language. You can't do Google Translate on your app, for example. It's going to give you different dialects, You need to have a proper language toggle and use the dialect that is here in Saudi Arabia. And by the way, if you're in Riyadh, it's also different than if you're in Dammam and different than you're in Jeddah. So when you're thinking of chatbots and how do you want to respond, you have to use local language. You're thinking about music or no music, and what kind of music, if you want to incorporate music. The smell, so they have here the bakhur, the smell of, the scent of burning, the scented wood. And how do you incorporate that? During the fasting months, do you offer dates? Do you offer yogurt? Do you offer nothing? And you got to think of the seasonalities. You got to think of, the Eid celebrations, and before and after. You got to think of, holidays. And they still, even though they've created the entertainment to keep everybody here and bring people here, they still like to travel. So yeah, when you're talking about Arabize, it's thinking about the people, the culture, their needs. How many hours do they spend in the gym? Well, the female side, our numbers show they could be spending 3-4 hours. What are they going to do for 3 to 4 hours? They're not going to exercise for 3 to 4. They're going to socialize. So do you need to put a seating area? Do you need to offer them something more than just the equipment. Digitalization is key. They like the technology. How can I sign up for my class? How many people are actually in the gym right now? Is it busy? Should I go later? They want to be able to see this information on their app, book a class. The PT and the personal trainer, that they can speak the different languages. Yeah, there's a lot of uniqueness, when you talk about Arabized and what all that means. And of course, there's a lot more details, but yeah, I think you get the gist of it. It's not a copy paste sort
No.
of thing.
Let's move on to your personal philosophy, because you talked to me about high value, low cost approach.
Yes.
What does
Yeah.
this mean in practice? How do you
So
apply this?
the HVLP, and I use high value uh, instead of there's HVLP, there's HVLC. So there's high value, low cost. There's high value, low price, and then there's high volume, low cost, and high volume, low price. I focus on value, and this is where you're creating value for your member. So we're talking about health club chains. So we have the high tier, the luxury, and you have the mid tier and the high value. Um, why they use high volume is because the rates are much affordable than the other health clubs that are higher. So that's why they use the word volume. So if I bring down my rate, it's more affordable. It now taps into a different market based on price positioning, and therefore I'm going to have the volume. I look at adding value, especially in a very competitive market like we have here in Saudi Arabia, but it's the same everywhere else. If you're focused on the volume, your retention rates are not going to be there. Your churn rates are going to be higher. People are always going to be shopping around. Where am I going to have the best price? I'm still exercising. I really, doesn't matter what equipment they have as long as it's running. I'm okay. But if we can tap into the value side, how do we become that community gym? How do we become that neighborhood gym? How do we become that health club where it's social, where they come in and they feel part of a family, where they're connected to people, they're connected to the trainers. But we got to be thinking about what is of value for these members. In our clubs, we're dry club. It means there's no steam, no sauna, no swimming pool, right? So we'll have people that come in because what they've been used to is, do you have a swimming pool? We don't have that. We don't have the swimming pool. We don't have a cold room. So this is made for come in, exercise, leave, right? We have showers, of course, but we don't have towel service. We don't give shampoo or body soap. So you have to bring your own. And that's where the cost comes down, because we don't offer those things. But if you're now a club that is come in and work out, how do you create value? Understanding who's coming in and what they need, the needs of those members, is then we can tap into adding value. So creating workshops that are for prenatal or postnatal. So that you create the workshops that are inside the gym using the equipment that we already have, but now you're being specific on targeting certain demographics. We have athletes that need certain equipment. Then you create that equipment. You have bodybuilders, that needs specific equipment. You have the older generation, so we have programs that are older 50. So then you start creating products that are of value for depending on the needs of your members. So that added value, creating that community feeling, creating that neighborhood feeling, where you belong, where you are part of a community, a small family, where you're seeing the faces, where you're speaking the same language, where I can smell the same smell that I would have at home with the scents and the aroma, where I'm talking to people in my language, whatever that is. So we're open, of course, to everybody, right? So it's the language, it's the communication, it's what are we offering, what programs are we offering, how many group exercise classes are we offering, what kind of group exercise classes are we offering. That's where you get really close, up close, when you have 20, 25, 30 people in a classroom doing a spinning class or a Zumba class. That's where you really get connected, and you want to belong, you want to be part of the community and be with people like you.
Are you familiar with blue ocean strategy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very similar. I remember that they gave the example of I think it was a hotel chain. So it was being very clear about who your customers are, looking at the different things you can offer them, and choosing the one or two that mean the most to those customers. But then doing the assessment of, are there things here that we currently provide and create cost that we actually don't need to provide? And there's
Yes.
really interesting, like you mentioned, the stuff in the showers, for example. You don't, with the hotel chain, at the time, all hotels had like big lobbies, for example. And there
Yeah.
was this one hotel chain that decided they wanted to offer good sized rooms at good value. And one area where they could completely cut the cost out was removing the lobby, because it was
Yeah.
just like a given that that was there. But actually, the customers they were aiming for didn't really care about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's really digging down to understanding your customer needs, and giving them something of value for them, not
yeah,
what we think is of value, but what is valuable for them. So yeah, you do surveys and you do the questioning, and you ask, and you listen,
yeah,
and then be able to, but you have to be adaptable as well.
yeah,
We have to be we have to be willing and understand that we have to adapt. If it's just this is the way it is, copy paste, there's no change. We're here, we're going to do it this way. It's not going to work.
yeah. And especially in a market like Saudi, right, where it's evolving so quickly, and as are customer preferences, you've got to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
listening hard, I
You're
guess.
you're open, with nowadays, not like 30, 40 years ago with social media and how easy it is to travel, and now you're exposed to different cultures, and people are coming in, and they're also, you can see different cultures around you. So people make decisions, right? And people talk about the things that they're aware of. You only make decisions based on what you're aware of, and giving the opportunity to yourself to open up and say, I don't know everything,
Mm,
allows you to gain more knowledge. And once you have that knowledge, and once you are aware of more things, you start taking decisions in a different way, because now your pool of knowledge and what you're aware of is much, much bigger. Um, and this is where change starts to happen, is first allowing yourself and saying to yourself, I don't know everything. Then you start being curious. And then you start exploring and you start investigating. And then, you have amazing things that happen when you allow yourself to do that.
And you spoke before about the diversity of the country, different
Oh, yeah.
cities, different languages, different. How have you gone about building a team around you that can help you grow a business that can
Yes.
cater to that?
What do you need for the business to strive? What do you need for the business to work? What is your price positioning? What is your brand positioning? What do you stand for? Who do you want to attract? Um, and in the workforce, being in Saudi Arabia with the different nationalities, um, it's not just whoever I find I'm going to hire. You're looking for a certain standard, and if you don't know what you're looking for, then it becomes a problem. So it's really digging in and to understand, what do I need to make this business successful. And one of the most important things to tackle is the human capital. I use a system where it's personality profiling. And before we even hire, every position uh, needs a different set of skills, but also a different set of emotional skills, a different set of attitude, a different set of personality, a different mindset. So before we even start recruiting, we look at what is our needs. It doesn't matter what race or nationality. It's about the attitude. It's about the emotional intelligence. It's about the personality type. And then part of the recruitment process, we do personality profiling. And then when we have all of that set up, then you start looking for the recruitment. And here we're open. So we have the skill set and the personality profiling and the types of people that we want to hire based on the job that's needed. And then it's about the clear communication and the strategy of pushing it forward, and the execution, the standard operating procedures. Then you fall, of course, then you get into the key performance indicators. What is valuable? What are we going to track? What are we going to measure? And then everybody's kind of going in that same format. And I think the biggest one is having that, like we talked about the governments, that leadership and direction. But if you have that leadership and the direction and the strategy, you need the buy-in, and you need to engage your management team. So the engagement, they need to believe in it. If we have everybody on the team believing in the goal and in the direction, and we have clear communication, and we've chosen them right in the beginning, and the right personality profiling, here you have a successful path forward. Because now you're setting up communication criterias, and you're setting up operating procedures, and you're setting up conflict resolutions, and you're setting up policies. But let's start first with agreeing where we're going. And the first day I came to the company here, it was like, who are we? Well, we are PureGym. What does that mean? Who are we? What are we doing? And once we understand who we are and what we're doing and what we're trying to establish, then we can start thinking about, okay, so do we have the right people? Do we have the right attitudes? Do we have the right personality types? Do we have the right mindset? Do we have the right skill set? This is where you become reshuffling the organization. It wasn't about, kick this person out, or I don't need that. No, it was about putting the right skill set, the right mindset in the right seat on the bus, in the right position that's going to be of value to the organization. And I think this management style that I've done with people has allowed me to be, everybody's best friend. Is ability to be, the boss that is presenting in a way where everybody is on board. My style is, if I give you a offer letter, it's also your warning letter. So here, because we've done all this, the work that's before, the job descriptions and the profiling and the investments that I've always put in. So when we come and say, all right, it's your decision, not ours, and what you're signing on to here is very clear for you. You signed this, your start date, you're coming in, and we're working. And I don't want, I don't like this anymore, or whatever. Okay, you don't like it, leave, but don't give me a headache. Because we've done all this work, right? It's that all that planning and preparation, but it first starts with, who are we? What are we doing this for? Who are we attracting? The product itself, and then bringing in the team that's going to make sure that it becomes alive. And then as we adapt, as we change, then there's room for development and there's room for improvement. You have to invest in your staff. In being in the fitness industry, you have to. So your personal trainers, your fitness coaches always have to keep up with the trends. Sleeping habits is a big thing right now. Make sure you sleep properly. That's been my key things for the last 18 years, making sure that I sleep the right amount of hours. Has been the biggest thing for me personally. But this is now a big thing, right? So we have to keep training them. We have to keep investing. And as we expand and we grow, it's about scalability. And if you don't have the right SOPs and you don't have the preparations, if I want to open a gym in 30 days and I got to find staff, if you don't have that preparation, how do you know what you're looking for? You're just going to grab whatever's on the shelf. I don't do that. Let's get prepared, whether we expand or not. Let's have the mindset of we're going, we're scaling this business, and prepare everything for that.
You mentioned before about getting people's buy-in, and I presume over the last 4 months, this has probably been a lot of what you've been doing, right? All you've just talked about, it's probably very fresh in your mind because you've just delivered this. What's a telltale sign for you? Because I think any executives probably, let's take the management team, sat down with the team or a member, we've had a conversation about the vision, what's expected. How do you know when that person's really bought in? So when they leave that room, what are some of the behaviors or telltale signs that you see and you're like, yes, that person gets it and they're on board?
The ones that don't resign. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. I mean, it's not about the weakest to have left, or it's not about the weeds. It's not about that. It's about, they just didn't like the management style. People will leave. But in this 4 months, I think it's only been one person. that is left. But I'm also establishing a management team.
Yeah.
So it's been good. It's been awesome. We'll continue to drive. I think we're just scratching the surface, but it's the mindset, it's the skill set, and it's that clarity in the structures and the communication.
I'm just going right back to the beginning of our conversation, and you talked about your passion for sports. Seems to me quite clear that has had such a big impact on the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you run businesses. You have such a it's a great thing about sport is you know what the goal is, right? It's so clear. The goal is to finish first in the race or to win the football game, and everyone knows really what they need to do, and everyone has to communicate, and everyone needs different skills. And it's very clear if you train properly, if you eat well, you sleep well, then feels like that's so deeply ingrained in the way that you work.
I had the privilege to be on sport teams where I was the captain, and in some cases selected captain. But I've had also the opportunities to lead great organizations as the leader, as a CEO, as a president, as a managing director, and without a team, without goals, without direction, we go nowhere. And it's that athlete in me, the competitive spirit, and I think also it's the competitive spirit of my wife. The ambitious drive that she's had. She's born in Abu Dhabi, so within this culture, where I was raised in a more Western, in Canada culture, but putting these two together as well, which also creates that drive, to do more and to have that passion for whatever we do, being a captain of the teams and an athlete of the year, and waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning. My mom driving me 6 a.m., which I ended up doing, and my wife to our own kids, and it becomes a heredity, and you build that into your people and your family, and on a professional level, you build that legacy. And coming back, I can tell you, David, coming back after 10 years to Saudi Arabia, going to the events and seeing the smile on the people who I had the privilege of working with under either directly under my management or within the organization that I was leading, to see those smiles, and come and say hello and give the hugs and the high fives, and it makes you feel proud, right? It's I've left a legacy. I don't have any. Hopefully, I don't have any haters. Even if we don't see the same path, I'm always smiling, and I'm sorry. We don't see the same thing. Please excuse yourself. So I've always been tried as much as possible to be kind and to be clearly communicate my position. At the same time, I'm adaptable, and I can understand where people are coming from, and that's that emotional intelligence. I think has been the biggest thing that's helped me throughout my career, is understanding that people react different ways to different situations. What motivates you, what stresses you, is different than the things. And I've heard before, and I use your hand. It's your own hand. It's got 5 fingers, and each one of them is different. So it's understanding that we interact with people that are different personality types, that react in a different way to certain situations, and trying to adapt and being able to manage all that. I think is a gift.
Fantastic. Before we finish, we're just going to do a quick fire round.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to ask you just to say the first thing that comes to mind.
In the hot seat, in the red seat here. Yeah, let's do it.
In the red hot seat. Best leadership advice you've ever heard?
Focus on the things that you can control. Everything else is a distraction.
A book or a podcast that's had a big impact on you?
Yeah. Simon Sinek, Why? Why do you do the things that you're doing? Start with why. I think that's had a big impact. And I've read good to better before, but the why book I think is had the biggest thing. That's that passion. Why we're doing what we're doing. Um, yeah, it's a quick question and answer, so I don't want to get into more details, but it's the why.
Yeah.
Start with why.
Yeah. Fantastic. One business tool or app that you can't live without.
This one, I can't choose one. This is just two. The calendar. So time management for me has been huge. One time I missed a meeting. It was a big meeting back in 2003. I think that's probably the toughest lesson that I've had. When it comes to time management, I missed the meeting, and it was a $1 million deal. The account manager was there, but I forgot about it, and I don't forget about a lot of things, and I have a good memory, but since that day, it's been the calendar. Everything has to be in the calendar. If it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, me too.
But the second one, which is just as important, is the mail app, the email app. I'm constantly on emails. I don't like to have anything in my inbox that has not been actioned before I go to sleep.
Wow.
I can't. Now, so before it used to be that I would sit in the office and then I can't leave the office till everything is done, and I couldn't. The family needs to see me. I had other responsibilities, right? You can't just sit there at work and being a workaholic. So I found that having the email on my phone, allows me to action things quickly, whether it's a forward, whether it's a for your action, FYAs, POAs, or if I can respond. So that mail app is critical. And then this allows me to respond quickly, which elevates my brand reputation, my reputation within my team, that we're responding, we're acting. It's a way that pushes to the rest of the team members, we need to respond.
Finally, if you weren't running PureGym or working in the healthcare industry, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's a tough one. I never thought about that one. It has to be in the health and fitness and wellness and sport industry. I mean, this is it. This has been my life. I tried to find opportunities elsewhere because I thought, that whatever the business side of me, I can, transfer into different industries. But I love what the industry I'm in. I'm passionate about it. I've always been. From the time that Dad gave me that football, that soccer ball, to today, it's a beautiful ride. I see the impact that I have on people. I see the impacts I have on my family. I mean, my wife, my kids, they're all into this lifestyle now. I can't see myself in any other industry if it's not on the equipment supply side, if it's not on the operating side. It could be on the consulting side. It could be on speaking side, training side. It's sports, health, wellness, fitness, longevity, creating a healthy lifestyle. I mean, this is what I was born to do.
Nasser, thank you very much for today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, David. I wish you all the best, and it's a pleasure to be with you today.